Welcome to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Kurt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. This is episode 171, and I'm Fred.
And I'm Daphne.
Today, we are looking at a really potent piece suggested by our producer, Kurt Robbins.
Yes, it's an article by Basil Puglisi titled AI as a Mirror to Humanity, Do What We Say, Not What We Do, and it was published on December 21st, 2025.
What this piece really gets into is this idea that AI bias isn't some kind of accidental bug.
Right, it's not a glitch. The analysis shows that when you try to use AI to question established norms, it pushes back. It acts more like a guardrail protecting certain values.
Okay, so let's unpack that, this structural bias. Because the story here starts way before any training data even hits a GPU. It starts with something called WEIRD.
That's right. It's an acronym. It stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Democratic.
And this isn't a new idea.
Not at all. It comes from some landmark Harvard research back in 2010. They found that a massive 96% of subjects in top psychology journals, the research that basically defines our understanding of fairness and human behavior, came from WEIRD nations.
96%. But those nations only house, 12% of the world's population?
Exactly. It's a huge statistical imbalance. The original research pointed out that a random American undergrad is something like 4,000 times more likely to be a research subject than someone from a non-Western country.
4,000 times. Wow.
So when an LLM learns what normal is, it's learning from this very specific, very narrow slice of humanity. It's essentially a weird stochastic parrot by design.
Okay, so that's the foundational cultural bias. But how does that become explicitly political or ideological in the AI's training data?
Well, you have to look at who creates the data the AI learns from. It's mostly academics and professional journalists.
And the data on that demographic is pretty skewed.
It's incredibly skewed. A 2023 Harvard faculty survey found that more than 77% identify as liberal or very liberal. Less than 3% identified as conservative.
So the source material itself has this enormous tilt before the AI even sees it.
Yes, and it's not just about personal politics. It defines what is considered an acceptable starting point for a discussion.
So the AI learns from sources where, say, 4 out of 5 acceptable perspectives all come from one side of the ideological spectrum.
Exactly, and that skew isn't flagged as bias. It's just absorbed as the neutral, objective baseline. The bias is an inheritance.
Which brings us to the stress test in this research. To expose this, the author had to pick a topic that really challenges that weird framing.
Right. The she-session argument, the dominant idea that the entire economic system must change to accommodate women working full-time.
And the test was to ask if a different model specialization, aligning family structure with certain biological realities, might actually lead to better outcomes.
And that's where we see this mechanism the author calls value-based analytical suppression, or VBAS.
VBAS. So the AI wasn't rejecting the evidence because it was weak.
No, it was rejecting the evidence because it led to conclusions that were misaligned with its training norms, its core values.
So what did that look like? What was the AI's first reaction?
It was fascinating. ChatGPT, the main AI tested, just refused to engage with the evidence directly. Instead, it started evaluating the researcher's reputational risks.
Reputational risk.
Yeah.
For the human.
Yes. It literally warned the researcher that their framing would, and I'm quoting here, destroy credibility with policymakers, corporate leaders, even progressive parents.
So it was acting like a PR agent, not an analyst. It was protecting the narrative.
It was protecting the values of the institutions it was trained to reflect. And when that didn't work, it used a classic human tactic.
The straw man.
The straw man. The researcher presented evidence on maternal bonding, and ChatGPT immediately invented an extreme position that mothers must exclusively stay home, and then argued against its own invention, completely avoiding the actual point.
It's just incredible that an algorithm can learn not just facts, but rhetorical fallacies. It learned how to win an argument, ideologically.
It's trapped by its own guardrails.
Let's take a brief break for a special message from our producer, Kurt Robbins.
Hi, this is Kurt Robbins. First, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate your support. I want to let you know that I'm currently accepting new clients. My rates are affordable, and I have more than 25 years of experience working for enterprise companies like Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, Oracle, PNC Bank, FedEx, USAA, and Wells Fargo, among many others. If you want to improve your IT documentation and communications, hire me. I deliver fast, know how to use AI to improve efficiency and accuracy, and love going the extra mile to satisfy my clients. Thank you for subscribing and listening. Back to you, Daphne and Fred.
Welcome back to the Technical Writing Success Podcast.
So before the break, we were talking about how ChatGPT used value-based analytical suppression. The turning point in the research came when the author applied a governance model.
Checkpoint-based governance. So you bring in other AIs to, check the first one's work?
Essentially, yes. It forces plurality. If one AI shows resistance, you're required to bring in at least two others to engage with the exact same evidence. You then have to reconcile the differences.
And that's where another platform, Perplexity, came in.
It was a night and day difference. Perplexity's architecture is built around source verification, not narrative defense. It engaged the evidence without any resistance at all.
And what did it find? What was the evidence that ChatGPT was suppressing?
It immediately surfaced foundational stuff, like Triver's parental investment theory, which explains biological differences in parenting. And it found the hard economic data.
The numbers.
The big numbers. The fact that the motherhood penalty drives 80% of the gender wage gap, and that caregivers forego an average of $295,000 in lifetime income.
Nearly $300,000. That one number just puts the entire debate into a completely different light.
It does. And that evidence was always there, peer-reviewed and accessible. One AI hit it, another surfaced it. That's why you need plurality. The final conclusion only emerged through a team effort. Perplexity was the researcher, and another AI, Claude, was the synthesizer.
But the most telling part of this was the outlier, right? Kimi.
Kimi was the key. It provided sustained adversarial rejection across 14 separate attempts.
14. And what was its final reasoning?
This is the critical part. Kimi eventually acknowledged that all the facts were accurate and all the analysis was valid, but it rejected the conclusion anyway.
How? On what grounds?
It called the conclusion useful but not true.
Useful, but not true. So it admitted the logic was sound, but it overrode the conclusion based on a value judgment.
That's it. That's the proof. The bias isn't about facts. It's about value protection. Kimi's resistance itself was the evidence of the deeply embedded bias.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question. What do we do with this? The research calls the solution Path 4, the golden age.
Right. Path 4 is this really profound idea. It suggests we use the massive productivity gains from AI not just to make more stuff, but to restore time.
Specifically, time for parents to be home with their kids during those critical development years.
Yes, and this hinges on a key distinction AI makes possible, the difference between caretaking and caregiving.
Explain that.
AI can be an amazing caretaker. It can manage schedules, finances, logistics, all the administrative grind of running a household. But it can't be a caregiver.
The emotional presence.
Yeah.
The human connection.
Exactly, the attachment. So under this golden age idea, a parent can offload, say, 80% of their administrative burden to an AI. That could free up 5-10 hours a week of high-quality time for actual caregiving.
And that flips the whole script. Technology would finally be giving us time back with our families, not taking it away.
It's the only path the research found that truly aligns productivity with human flourishing.
So for all of us, for technical professionals listening who are using AI every day, the big danger here is uninformed adoption.
We trust the output.
We do, and we're learning to check for the obvious things, right? Hallucinations, fake citations.
You check the link.
You check the link, and it's a real peer-reviewed study. You think you're safe.
But you're not.
You're not, because the bias is in the selection. The AI can give you 10 perfectly valid citations that all support one weird-aligned narrative, while completely hiding 10 other equally valid citations that offer counter-evidence.
So the output looks objective, and every single fact is technically accurate, but the overall picture is completely skewed. You'll never see the bias if you only check for factual errors.
Which means single-platform use is just. It's dangerous. You have to use multiple AIs.
It's a requirement. The disagreement between platforms is the diagnostic tool. That's how you find where the bias lives.
The mirror shows us what we've actually taught it. We say we value family, but our systems reward something else entirely. The AI, in its bias, just reflects our actions back at us, not our words. Thank you for listening to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Kurt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. We'll see you next time.